Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. Well, I have to say, I am kind of amazed that this is finally happening over 4 years or so. So, yeah, I wanted to say thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
No, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Been a while since bumping into you like coming off stage at BlizzCon years back.
Yeah, 4 years ago, I saw somebody post a picture, and it was quite a shock to see how much hair I had back then. It really was.
You and me both.
Yeah. Well, the
Same.
first thing I want to ask is now that Shadowlands is primarily over, what would you really say are the biggest successes of Shadowlands? What do you think that we can expect to see going forward?
Definitely Covenants. I think
Okay.
Covenants. We want to make sure like that's actually. I think we want to fit those into Dragonflight and
Yeah.
um. So high level, I think narratively, one of the
It's be he's like, we're gonna put these in Dragonflight because everyone loved the Covenant so fucking much.
challenges and exciting things about Shadowlands was making something brand new in World of Warcraft.
Mhm.
Like we've over the years mined out a lot of the lore, a lot of the original settings from Warcraft 3 and onwards. And every time comes time to make a new expansion, one of the big questions is like, okay, where's left for us to visit? And I think the challenge of say what you will about Sylvanas, the jailer, the rest. I think building environments and building characters and cultures in the enchanted forest of Ardenweald and the Gothic castles and cities of Revendreth and so forth, and having that feel like an extension of World of Warcraft and having players really vibe with those environments and call them home. I think that was super satisfying for all of us. Um,
I liked
Honestly, I think
Ardenweald.
along the way, a lot of the realizations we came to in driven by community feedback over the course of the middle of Shadowlands 915 and onward, I think are something that will change WoW for the better forever going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I remember watching the Taliesin interview tomorrow or tomorrow, yesterday, excuse me. And you were saying how pretty much all of the stuff is going to be account wide now for Dragonflight, or a
Yep,
lot of the in-game systems.
I'm sure that will be weaponized against me and us, and it's like, hey, Ian, you promised everything.
Yeah.
It's like philosophically, yeah, it's get your gear, get your power. That's a character progression. That's part of the journey when you're making a new character. But
Hmm.
yeah, access to content, utility, cosmetics, almost all the rest. And we also want to ask the question of like, how fun is the content that you're going to have to do to replay multiple times?
Good
And
question.
exactly. And the less it is, the more we want to make that optional and have
Yeah.
it be something you can choose whether or not to do.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm very relieved to hear that. I know that was something that a lot of people complained about in BFA and also Shadowlands, so it's a huge relief. The next thing is I wanted to ask about the
Agreed.
dragon riding abilities in combat. Do you think that we're going to be able to ride these dragons into combat in a battle like Malagos or something crazy like that?
Maybe at some point. Yeah, I think
Really?
one of the things like we don't have anything planned like that right at launch. I think we want to really understand how the system
Is to
plays
see
and
how
strengths
does
and
dragon
weaknesses and what it's
riding
good
work?
at, and then I think trying to incorporate your Drake companion into some future dungeon or raid encounter or even something in the outdoor world or whatever feels like a cool space to explore. But like, let's build a solid foundation first, and then figure out how to build upon it.
Focus on step one until we get to step five. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so outside, dragon riding is obviously something everybody's going to be doing.
I don't know
And
if that's
of
gonna be
course, we're going to get
buggy.
new raids, we're going to get new dungeons. But is there any other content that, like, just a casual player who just logs on and just wants to enjoy the game at large is going to really have to do on a daily?
Well, I mean, have
Hi,
to do in the
Kara.
mandatory sense, or
No,
have
no,
as
like
an
actually,
option? Exactly. Yeah.
a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
just
I'm
like
watching
casual
this
fun stuff
interview
too,
with
like the Darkmoon
Asmongold
Fair,
and
for
Ian, the
example. Are we going
director
to
of
get
World of
something similar to that?
Warcraft. Like a half-hour
Yeah, so I
interview.
think maybe not Darkwing Fair
Yeah.
specifically, but I think I think everything events, world content
Uh huh.
in general. I think Zereth Mortis is like it's one zone. We're looking to, in a lot of ways, build an entire continent, an entire expansion with those philosophies and that approach. And so things like protoform synthesis that currently exist, just as a fun collection space to explore, is the kind of thing we want to do more of. I think we've in a lot of ways underserved something that may be almost a silent majority in our game or a quiet majority, which
Huh.
are people who aren't looking to top meters and push keys and get their PvP rating up. They just want to explore, do chill stuff, and feel at home in the world. And while still serving the core raid dungeon, all the rest, we want to do more for that group in particular in Dragonflight.
That is great. I totally agree. I'm really glad to hear that. And another thing is that like we haven't really we've gotten some new arenas. We've gotten the Maldraxxus arena, the Kyrian arena, but we haven't really gotten a lot of new types of content for like a PvPer to do, like battlegrounds and just types of PvP, other than obviously solo shuffle, and apparently raided's coming to that. Are we going to see more battlegrounds or more war mode features in Dragonflight as well?
I'm not really concerned about any like PvP stuff right now.
A rated version of solo shuffle, making some changes to the way gearing works in PvP to make it more just like a couple of fixed tiers. So the conquest gear is conquest gear. You don't have to worry about upgrading it as you go up in rating, so that the experience of getting into the season or catching up on alts is less painful. And I think with war mode, we often, the best war mode content is the organic stuff. It's not the thing that we set up as like a specific PvP event, but it's something like assaults in 8.
You want to start the new characters this afternoon? Yeah, we can. That's what I was thinking about earlier, actually.
1 BFA, where it's like there's just stuff that both factions want to do. There's extra bonuses for having war mode on. There's natural collision that occurs, and that makes for some fun world PvP. On the battleground question, we want to add more battlegrounds. I think there's work we need to do.
I think battlegrounds do need love, though, right?
Our kind of underlying BG system.
I've never really I haven't PvP'd in so long. Like, I don't know how the PvP is for the battlegrounds or anything, so I don't really have like any input on that.
Before that makes sense. I think part of what we've seen over the years when we add battlegrounds, we're adding one battleground into a big rotation. Which most people random queue for. You might, queue all afternoon and not land in the new battleground at all. And so it's like, is that really changing the experience in the way that we would hope that new content would? That's why I think recently you've seen us pivot to brawls a lot, where we can have at least focus on that specific brawl in a specific week or two. But I think as our general approach of looking at evergreen systems and foundations of our game continues, and we have the ones we're focusing on right now for Dragonflight. I think looking at how the BGQ pool works, and maybe there's something we can do there with a seasonal rotation going forward that lets us bring in new maps and focus on specific ones. There's a lot of stuff we want to explore in the future, but not for Dragonflight right at launch.
So kind of like the seasonal thing that you're doing with the dungeons in Mythic Plus, kind of?
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, I think that makes sense. And now
You don't want to make a panda so you have to level the first 10 or so levels by ourselves? Oh, okay, that's fine. I could probably do that later on, or before later or something.
I have kind of a much bigger question, is that every expansion, we go up like 100 or 150 item levels. Like characters at the beginning of the expansion are doing 20,000 DPS, at the end they're doing 100, like 5x more. And like we've had so many stat squishes right now, we need one like every other expansion. And like with
well, I won't have it done. That's true.
One just inside of that expansion. Do you guys see that as a problem, or is that going to be pretty much just the norm going forward?
There are aspects of it that are problematic. I think not having that extra multiplicative borrowed power helps keep that power creep in check. Like over the
I don't know yet, Kara. I'm still thinking about that. Hoarder Alliance?
Came from gear.
I don't know.
A portion of it came from dozens of artifact traits and legendaries and all the rest multiplying across that.
That was great.
But the item level progression, honestly, that's been part of World of Warcraft since, I would say, the middle of Wrath of the Lich King. Right around like Ulduar into TOC into Icecrown was the first time in WoW where Blizzard kind of officially said, you don't need to go back and farm old raids anymore. You don't need to keep farming for your DFT all expansion long or whatever. It's just the new tier is a fresh start. And that has a lot of advantages in terms of just accessibility, making it feel like it doesn't matter if you missed a patch, you're not forever behind. You can come back, join your raid guild, play with your friends, jump in, join pugs, whatever, and do the new thing. And that's just kind of how WoW has been for the last 15 years. I think we've experimented a bit with item level gaps between tiers, but what we often find is if an item isn't at least a certain percent better than what you got months ago, and you're having to learn an all-new encounter or go into an all-new challenge to get it, that just doesn't feel good as a reward. If you're, a guild that does normal raids and progresses into heroic over the course of a tier, let's say, but you're going to start in normal of the next tier. If that gear isn't better than what you're wearing, like, what's the point? Where do we even go from there? And so that has dictated certain gaps. And I think the most important thing is that rewards feel rewarding in the short term. And one of the burdens of the years-long, decades-long life cycle is doing things like squishes. But while we don't love it from an elegance perspective, I think it's better than saying this patch or this raid tier is not going to feel rewarding just so that it buys us more long-term room.
And like, how long do you view that like kind of upgrade cycle being? Because we've had a few of these overlaps happen. Like you remember like Ashvane's Razor Coral or like Ashara's Font. Do you see it as a positive or a negative, or like, because what happens nowadays is that it feels like you're not really playing the whole expansion. You're just kind of playing just the patch. It's like during Sanctum of Domination.
Yo, that
why would you
friggin'
go
that's
back and
right,
cast
because
away?
like all these new like chains of domination and shit come out and all that shit. It's like each patch you gotta play, and you just gotta play that patch. He's fucking right. You don't play the expansion. You play the expansion, then you wait for the patch. Yeah, that's
After,
true.
and especially nowadays, why would you go back? And it seems like you're trying to solve that problem a little bit in season 4 with like these new affixes and things like that. So is that something that we can expect to see going forward into Dragonflight?
Not initially,
Okay.
I don't think, but the season 4 experiment, like I think as a capstone to expansions, is something that if this works, I'd love to repeat and love to have a little bit of a remix to help avoid content droughts at the end of expansions, along with, of course, just getting the damn expansion out faster.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think a lot of this is listening to what players prefer. I think a lot of what we've heard is that when there are those 1 or 2 outlier items from prior tiers that feel relevant long term, we get negative feedback on that. People who don't really feel like they want to have to go back and farm up Sylvanas daggers or whatever else, particularly if they skip that tier and now you're like, oh, I want to switch to Rogue for Sepulcher. Oh, I have to go find pugs and go back and do this other thing. And also, when it's the idea of making more stuff in that space, people are often happy to move on from a setting that they've spent months in, whether it's raiding with a guild, progressing, or pugging. A new environment is part of what's exciting there. So I think we're open to it, and if there's a couple of outliers, we definitely don't want to stop those items from being exciting. But I'm not sure that, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'll certainly look at feedback that comes out after this interview, but I'm not sure people are clamoring to have reasons to go back and do Sanctum every week right now.
It's weird because like for some people I think they enjoy it, for others they don't. I mean, I know that you can always go back and think of the items from like BC or even Wrath, or especially Classic. It's like people went back and remember they used that Classic trinket in like on Lich King, right? Like that kind of stuff is really cool.
Scarab Brooch.
Yeah,
yes,
that is
the
cool.
Scarab Brooch from Vicitus, exactly. And that stuff is great, but at the same time it's
Bro,
just
he knew. He fucking knew what Asmongold was talking about.
not it can be frustrating for people at the same time, and so it's like where that balance is. But you're in general okay with a few items spanning a couple of tiers.
I would say a couple of tiers is probably a lot. I think 1 tier is
yeah,
fine.
I guess so.
Yeah, something like Sylvanas daggers is fine.
No Arcana Crystal.
Yeah, no, not so much. No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, now that we're talking about loot, why do you not want to bring back Master Looter?
So I'm sure everyone is like, why are you even wasting time asking this question? I've answered it 50 times. What if I told you I kind of do want to bring back Master Loot?
Okay.
And the team. So it's an interesting, something we've been reflecting on a lot in the last like year and a half.
Interesting.
Oz
champ, dude.
Places where we in the community have differed over the years and kind of reevaluating some of our thinking. Loot is a tricky one. I think going back to Legion, we had personal loot and group loot in parallel.
Legion, that was kind of a pain in the ass.
Like 2 versions of loot. Both
Legion, like I remember when playing Legion, that shit was so confusing and that was such a fucking pain in the ass. Like I was friggin' when I went and started playing Legion, it was like the new loot system. I was like, what the fuck is this?
How its data is set up.
It was terrible.
Experience, the code was a mess, and
I bet
we wanted to get out of for a bunch of reasons. And I think at the time we were looking at group loot, saw a bunch of problems with this structure we built. We're like, let's tear it down, let's lay new foundations, let's build a new system that's all personal. And over the last few years, we've been iterating on it and refining it and adding rules and exceptions. But there's a lot of problems with it. Clarity around what's tradable is pretty bad. The feeling of, hey, an item just dropped and it's technically an eye level upgrade, but I'm not going to use it and I can't give it to my friends. That
kind of fucking sucks.
We certainly haven't, solved degenerate behavior from world first guilds. If anything, it's gotten worse with all the cross server stuff.
Seems that way.
And buyers, and so we're taking a hard look at where we want to land going forward. The challenge is we've spent like 6 years building on those new foundations, and so it's not just something where you can flip a switch and say, all right, everything works the way it did. But I think there's a lot to be said for keeping personal loot in some spaces like outdoor world, trash and dungeons and raids. Like I don't think anyone needs group loot trappings there. But the core experience of like you kill a raid boss, there's 4 things on the corpse, and you figure out what you want to do with those 4 things. That's something we'd like to get back to.
That'd be cool.
I don't have the ability to promise that all the work to make that happen can occur in just the next few months. But in terms of long-term heading, I think that's what we're thinking.
We turn into a
So
robot.
it's not that the team is
I think it was his
necessarily
interview.
ideologically opposed to this. It's just that there was a lot of tech problems and like the dissonance, and I think it was Taurus whenever this happened, just caused that problems.
It's basically we have our tools, our code, every assumption we've made in how we build loot tables from 2018 onwards has gone in one direction, and now we would need to just turn back around. And I think there's a lot of questions.
So what,
to figure out
2018, 19, 20, 21, 20, so it's like friggin' 4 almost. I mean, probably all that shit's into Dragonflight too, right? They're not gonna redo a whole loot system just for, or this they did. I don't know.
I think we should also bear in mind that going back to group loot means that like you can have a bow drop with no hunters in the raid.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a thing that will happen, and feels bad, but that's kind of okay.
It's transmog piece.
Yeah, because the thing we can't have happen is a world where loot is still smart, and if you stack a group with like 6 warriors, you're only going to get warrior loot, and it's completely tradable with no restrictions. That just kind of breaks everything. So we need to just figure out a middle ground going forward, but that's something we want to do.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I guess that does definitely make sense. I mean, logistically, it seems like it would be very, very easy to stack a raid in that regard.
Yeah.
And, I
do
would
people do
advocate
that?
for
That's got to be a
little bit
thing,
too
right?
much
That's
time
why they
and
want to get rid of this.
But another thing is that the add-ons nowadays, we see that there's a huge UI redesign that's being done with Dragonflight.
This UI redesign, I remember seeing it in the Dragonflight friggin' the preview thing. That was cool. So I'm really interested to see what he's got to say about that.
I think that's a good thing. And you see nowadays, like many people, whenever they're joining a guild, having weak auras or having DBM is pretty much required, and it creates like this artificial gap between like casual players and hardcore players. It's kind of like a 2-part question. And like number one, like does the team, I mean just straight up, does the team design like these like heroic and like mythic encounters for add-ons? Same with like Mythic Plus. And the second part is, are we going to see more of these features incorporated into the game?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. It's something we spend a lot of time, especially recently, debating. We design acknowledging the existence of add-ons. I think we have to. Sometimes we're actually designing and implementing mechanics in ways that are going to try to work around add-ons, whether it's like the entering the code to disarm the bomb on Mekatork, or the Among Us game on Lords of Dread, and fixing stuff to plug loopholes that people found, because we know like, hey, we have this idea that could be really fun gameplay, but if an add-on solves the whole thing for you, then what's the point? So we have to acknowledge its existence. Ultimately, we're tuning.
I feel like honestly, they should just, for me, I think they should just get rid of add-ons. Fucking just get rid of them all.
Raid encounters in particular with 2 goals. One, it should be fun. Kind of goal number 1. Well, number 2 is it should provide an appropriate progression experience for the difficulty and where it is in the raid. And so, a heroic boss that's like late in the tier, our goal ultimately, we probably want that to take like 10, 15 wipes to beat, maybe a couple nights. Ideally a good progression experience is for a heroic guild, you spend your first night, make good progress, you're getting to the start of phase 3, you come back the next night, you tighten up your execution, you get the kill, feels good. Feels like you earned something, but it's also not super frustrating. If you walk in and you kill the boss in 2 pulls, that's a letdown.
Fucking easy clap, dude. That means we're just overpowered.
The progression experience.
That just means you're OP, dude.
And the reality is, people are using add-ons. And so if we build an encounter that was theoretically, completely doable and targeted at, assuming you don't have add-ons at all and aim for that difficulty target, people are going to use DBM and weak auras and go in and simplify mechanics and have an easier than intended time. So we have to acknowledge it in that world. Do we want you to feel like you have to download third-party programs to succeed in your game? Nope.
There's people over in Asmongold's chat saying to also get rid of add-ons, ban add-ons and shit.
None of that feels good. Over the years, we've tried to incorporate aspects of that functionality in our base. Even, sometimes it's just design, like making telegraphs better, or using the energy bars of bosses, mana bars, other ways of signaling, hey, when this bar fills up, a huge ability is going to happen, so you don't need a timer to let you know to prepare for it. Information is something we want to continue to improve and provide in our game. I think that's a core function of encounter design. The problem that we've seen, and that we don't really know how to solve, frankly, right now, is that over the last few years especially, add-ons have moved out of informational into more and more computational.
It's insane.
And like that, and that's the kind of thing that's like solving the problem for you doesn't feel like a thing that that'd be bizarre for our own UI to do. Like, and a random example, we were talking about this actually in the office last week. Wrath Classic's coming out later this year. Eventually, you're gonna get to Ice Crown Citadel. Random encounter from Wrath that came to mind was like Blood Queen Lanethel and Ice Crown Citadel. Really simple fight, couple of mechanics, almost patchwork level. But the one signature mechanic, of course, was gotta turn to a vampire, bite other people so that you don't get mind controlled. Back in the day, I think I, as a raid leader anyway, I think most people kind of call that out on the fly.
Call out names,
yeah. Like you have some rough sense of like, hey, these are our top DPS, or these are people who are bite the healers last. See what happens, and it's fun. You have frantic call outs, and it could be hard. Sometimes you would wipe just because you had to go from 8 to 16. People got confused. I can guarantee that when Wrath Classic Lanethel comes around, it's going to be get a weak aura.
Yep.
You list the people in your raid from top to bottom in terms of DPS priority. Everyone installs the weak aura, and when you become a vampire, all it's going to say is fight this person. No one has to speak. No one has to do anything.
See, and that sucks. That's what I miss about like raiding, because I remember back in the day, like 40-man raids in Classic, what was it, AQ 40 or some shit like that, when I ran it on my Warlock. Like, everybody is in fucking Discord and shit, and everyone's talking, and they, like, had a whole plan and shit, and nowadays, I feel like you just walk in with your weak auras, and it's just not as fun like it used to be.
Anything.
And Vent, actually, not Discord. Jesus Christ, shut up, Kara. God damn. Was it Vent that I used, or was it Vent or TeamSpeak back then?
That's not great all around. That doesn't feel like where we want our raid encounters to land. In some ways, it stops us from doing cooperative mechanics and coordination that's fun. And I think like all of this was always possible. People just never did it. Like in add-ons back in the day, like bigwigs and stuff actively tried to avoid even making strategy recommendations. It was purely information.
Yeah, it was all informational
so
stuff.
Maybe there's like an alternate timeline where if guilds had been doing this stuff 12 years ago.
That's why like details and damage meters exist. Like it was just all informational shit, and then suddenly like add-ons were coming out that would like solve like your daily puzzles and all that shit.
The same way AVR got locked down, or like back in Classic, cast canceling add-ons and decursive got changed. Maybe that change would have happened, but now we have like a decade worth of add-ons, including things you use to play your rotation better and all the rest.
I'm saying just ban add-ons. Get rid of them.
So it's not clear what the path forward is. I think we'd have to like do something like restrict what add-on APIs can access, at least in raids and dungeons. Maybe try to offer more of the like proc tracking, class mechanic stuff in our base UI.
Get rid of it.
And maybe get to a place where we can.
Even his chat's going fucking ham, saying get rid of fucking. Look at his chat's all fucking pod. Get rid of the fucking API. Get rid of all of it. Get rid of all that bullshit. Hey, Carol, what's up? Get rid of all the fucking UI. Ban them.
Take.
I agree.
Pulls on heroic, or 100 pulls if it's a late mythic end boss. That's not what we're not talking about nerfing stuff. We're making it easier, but we'd have to make those changes in concert. It's a lot to tackle, and I know that for a lot of players,
I think they need to ban add-ons.
The thing that you rely on that makes the game, feel more accessible to you.
That's huge. You know what? That's huge. If they ban add-ons, get rid of it, double it. I don't know what they're talking about, but more, add more. No, they're not adding more. We're gonna just fucking ban all add-ons. More add-ons? No, zero. Get rid of them. Bring back fucking raid leaders and shit that actually would tell people what to do and know the raid and shit. More dots! More dots!
Just swallow at it. So, no easy answer.
What sword? Hey, morning, Repenix. Morning, Caraway. Kara, everybody, stare. Don't fucking come in here staring at me. Morning, guys.
We're thinking about a lot.
Happy Friday.
I think so. I remember very clearly back in ICC where AVR got disabled, and then also, didn't that happen also in Nighthold with like...
People are stupid. True. Oh, no, 7TV's down for maintenance right now, Caraway. He probably refreshed and they can't even hear me right now. That the 7TVs, they went down for maintenance at 6 this morning.
Like Star Augur and Exorcist too.
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, that was like different ways of putting
the
3D
lines.
stuff. matching to nameplates, or yeah.
So have you all ever thought about
I mean, I mean, even for me, Kara, that's kind of creepy. So, you know, I'm not going to do that.
actually just like disabling the combat add-ons? Has there ever been conversations about that, or is it just kind of an idea?
I mean, it's an idea that we've had conversations about. The challenge is like, the fundamental piece is, can add-ons tell what buffs and debuffs you have on you and members of your group have on them? If we say no, okay, cool, we just broke like all raid frames, everything that you use to, you know, even just baseline, you know, tracking uptime of your slice and dice or whatever. You just want an add-on that makes that easier to see. We broke all of that.
Right.
That would be, I think, pretty ruinous for a good chunk of our player base to do suddenly.
Do it. Break them all.
So I think we want to try to
break them all.
A path forward, but it's not clear.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. And we'll.
You think they should get rid of? I think they should get rid of add-ons. Fucking get rid of it. Get rid of all the add-ons. Fucking. We'll go with the new Dragonflight UI. It'll be like new WoW. Get rid of all the add-ons, and here we go. You know what I mean? Caraway, I think 7TV was in the 7TV Discord. It said they were down for maintenance. My workday is gonna be so interesting. Is that a MORP? Hello, Henrik. Hello, hello. It is me. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Get rid of add-ons. Ban add-ons in World of Warcraft.
Will we be seeing some of those improvements and kind of some of those implementations of some add-on features in the new UI that's going to be coming out in Dragonflight?
So he just asked if there's going to be like any new add-on UI features that's coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something,
okay.
You know, I guess we didn't get a chance to really touch on it in the deep dive. Crash Reed, who was, you know, the UI designer, speaking in that
deep dive on the initial launch, they should have went more in detail for the UI, because I think that's huge. All add-ons, only add-ons, pay to play. Would you get the hell out of here, Garraway?
Dive. One of the things that he's worked on is kind of it's kind of trying to replicate what a lot of people do with weak auras, which is centralizing information about buff uptime, debuff uptime, cooldown tracking. Kind of pulling that information towards the center of your screen. So the default UI experience, you know, we can flag abilities for your class as things that you should be able to track very visibly.
Yeah, that'd be nice having it toward the middle of the screen, because like you got freaking shit up in the top left, and you got shit up in the top right. I guess it didn't really matter back in the day when you're playing on a little 17-inch monitor, right? Everything was fucking right there, but now screens are bigger, further away. So they do need, like, their UI hasn't changed at all since friggin' vanilla, really. I mean, I think it's been enhanced a little bit and, like, redone, but they'll probably go deeper later on. Ooh, woo. Yeah, you're probably right. But you can still unlock loot. You have to pay to use it. More money. Papega credit, dude. Yeah, see, my 7TV's still down, too. Like, you can't see my name and shit. Deeper hot, you know it, Kara.
We can even show things, you know, externals. Like if you're a tank and someone puts paint suppression on you, paint suppression duration should be right there in the middle of your screen under your character.
It should.
To have that on next to your shield wall or whatever else, because that's helping you manage your own ability usage. Again, of course, like a pro tank with weak auras is going to customize things that's like just for them, but we want the default.
I'm a pro tank with weak auras.
Much better, and we know that like it's not realistic to design mechanics that ask you to track uptime of a buff when that buff is like a flashing thing in the corner of your screen 12 inches away from where your eyes are focused otherwise. We need to do better. Dragonflight's UI isn't just aesthetic.
Peepo shake. Hi, mad girl.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
By the way, if you got your add-ons or your nothing's playing, because I do have alerts muted for watching this, because I'm going to make a YouTube video out of it too. Caraway's applying to be Pobby Kodak. All right, Caraway. You can still love your character, but you need to pay to use your unlocked skills. I'm great at this. I mean, yeah, exactly, Repenix. More mad girl. How are you today?
That I think that's something that's long overdue, and I know almost everybody uses something that's similar to that too. And I was also wondering, you know, obviously add-ons make it easier, and I don't really ever think that we're going to see a world where none of the raids or dungeons are on PTR or something. But were you all happy with what happened with the with Sepulcher and not having some of those fights on the PTR? Because I do think that data mining and a certain degree of it, like for example, we saw the jailer's corpse before we knew what happened at the end of the raid. It's a little bit of a spoiler, right? So like, do you think that is
just a little bit? You think
thing for the game, and do you think that we'll see more
giving out Bobby all the ideas to make money? Yeah, right. You're gonna be calling to get your car looked at again. Did your oil change not work, mad girl? You can get a monthly Diamond Level Plus subscription for $3.99. That gives you 10% off unlocking skills. Yeah, World of Warcraft's gonna go, yep, like the friggin' shitty-ass mobile MMOs you see all the time. 5% enough, we don't want to spoil the players. It didn't.
Or
Compression check.
not being on PTR and players actually experiencing it whenever it comes out.
I think we're happy with how the Sepulchre bosses worked out. You know, they weren't like completely free of bugs, but overall, I think it was a smooth experience for all the guilds that went through it and all difficulties. And the fact that like it was a genuine surprise and people were figuring it out as they went, like all of that was exciting to see. We'd like to do more of that. Data mining in general, I mean, I think when it comes to story, definitely makes for some odd like piecemeal.
Yeah.
Experiences where this portion of the story is visible, but then like no one knows what the cinematic is, so then all of the focus becomes, you know, the cinematic as opposed to the entire story that's told in context. Ultimately, we want to strike a balance between being able to get the feedback that's going to be important to make the game better. I think if we didn't have PTR at all, well, people wouldn't have had a chance to tell us after playing with and testing their set bonuses on target dummies or going into the raid.
Blizzard's announcing a new mobile game on the 3rd. That's not Diablo Immortal? What? Is it Warcraft mobile? Don't you guys have phones? Did you watch the Diablo Immortal release?
That, hey, this feels kind of frustrating, or, you know, I don't like the way this interacts with my rotation. And we wouldn't want to lose all of that. That's not like finding bugs. That's just getting ahead of important feedback that's going to make the game better for more people.
Yeah.
But the flip side is, yeah, there's something magical about just a sense of mystery and discovery that's really hard to get. It's impossible to preserve in the modern day and age. Like, everything's going to be on the internet.
There's say the first person that, yeah, there's going to be guides and shit immediately.
The more it's out there before the thing is even officially launched, the more there isn't even that tiny window to enjoy a sense of discovery. I know you played this game a bunch. Like,
yeah,
you know, played a lot of Elden Ring right when it came out a couple months ago. And one of the really fun things about that first week, especially with how vast that game was, is like you could go to a wiki and the wiki would be blank because people hadn't figured it out yet. You could, you know, find a cave and be like, I don't know what I'm going to find here, and no, there's nothing that will tell me right now. Of course, over time the meta gets solved. But
that's fucking cool.
Like
I agree with that.
Have that
but
sense of discovery and exploration is something we'd love to get back to, and just, you know, working on encryption.
Having that sense of discovery and shit in World of Warcraft, like, that's also something I miss. It's not Diablo Immortal. Yeah, true. Diablo Immortal, the beta releases on sometime beginning of June. We'll make them buy a Blizzard phone to play our mobile Diablo game. Yeah, I know. He's excited. He's like bouncing most of this interview. And WoW NFTs, each of which cost 100K plus transaction fees and gives you neat 480p background. It's Windows 95 ready. Ooh. Can't make phone calls or no, only to play the game. Only a Blizzard phone with their mobile games on it.
Technology, working on thinking about how we can test portions of our game without revealing the whole thing for everybody. All that is stuff that I think is in our long-term plans.
That would be awesome. And yeah, I totally agree. It's like whenever there's something new in the game and nobody really knows how it works, I think that a really good example of this on a small scale is the puzzles. Whenever the community is working together to figure out the puzzles, that's like one of the most hype.
These puzzles, I'm not sure what he's talking about.
I'm really glad to hear that. Next thing I was wondering about is the what do you think is going to happen? Like, now Wrath of the Lich King Classic coming out. Obviously, Wrath of the Lich King is going to run its course. Then what?
Yeah, so at this point, you know, I'd love to hear from you, from the community as a whole, what you want to come next. I think we're gonna we have a player base that really has made Classic their home. Many people who've carried their characters forward from Classic into Burning Crusade and likely into Wrath beyond that.
So he just basically said we're gonna see what the community wants next. Basically, that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. Oh shit, I opened that in a new tab. Hell yeah, Repenix, what the hell?
And, you know, when that comes to an end, when you defeat the Lich King, or sorry, when you kill Halion, the ultimate end boss of Wrath of the Lich King.
Oh yeah.
Can't forget Ruby Sanctum, come on. Do you want to start over? Do you want to try a different version of that? Do you want to carry that character forward into a new adventure? I know if, you know, Cataclysm for many people was like, oh, that's the beginning of the end, and, you know, I'm out.
It's a world revamp, yeah.
I'd ask, like, an interesting question is maybe, like,
we don't need a fucking Cataclysm Classic, bro. Fuck that. Who's gonna play Cataclysm Classic? I fucking hate Cat. That's the worst expansion ever.
That you don't like? Is it
You break your diet. Why are you asking me? Of course you fucking yeah, you break your diet. Did people like Kata? Because I fucking hated Kata.
Was it the heroic dungeons that was bad? Is Firelands a bad raid? Is Twilight Highlands a bad zone?
It's just
like,
a shit.
Is that the problem, or was
You
it
changed everything I loved about World of Warcraft with Cataclysm,
I don't
Ian.
know, LFR and Dungeon Finder from the start, and removing group quests from the world or whatever else, or compressing the talent trees? Like, what would it look like if
That's fine,
had some
Repentix.
Cat
I didn't.
content with some changes?
To be fair, the only part I've played of Cataclysm was the very beginning, because my account got hacked between when I left at the beginning of Wrath and when I came back for the beginning of Cataclysm, and when I realized they ruined all of my beginner starter zones, I quit. I hated it ever
lots of
since,
stuff is on the table, but
and stopped
I mean,
playing.
I really welcome that discussion now that the fact that we're doing Wrath is, no longer the world's worst kept secret and actually something that's known, but we're listening.
Okay, that's great. I had no idea.
like
That
the
there was
list-
like, yeah, you're just waiting to see what the community wants to hear, and I
Yeah,
guess
exactly.
to a
That's
certain
cool.
extent, that's kind of what you were probably doing with Season of Mastery, I'm assuming.
Very much so, yeah.
Okay, all right. I know we don't have a lot of time here, so I do want to do one last question. And so, at the end of Legion, so like there's a cinematic, and Sargeras, as you know, stabbed the Earth with a sword, and it's been there for quite a while. And I'm not really sure like where are things going with that.
Wait, what? What sword?
Okay. All right.
What sword?
I get it. I see. That's pretty much exactly what I would expect. Okay, thank you, Ian. I really appreciate you coming on today. This was amazing. I hope that we can do it again, by the way. So,
I like that. I like that interview. He got a lot of friggin'. He asked a lot of good questions, I feel.